Hey, everyone, and welcome to today's show on Wealth Strategy Secrets. Today, we are joined by Wayne Courreges. Based out of Central Texas, Wayne leads the investment lifecycle and investor relations for CREI Partners, a multifamily investment firm focused on the Southeast United States. His current projects include a 98-unit build-to-rent development in Lafayette, Louisiana, and recently went under contract for a 101-unit contract in Houston, Texas. Over Wayne's 15-year commercial real estate career, he has worked closely with dozens of real estate professionals, executing their property repositioning plans of over $60 million. Wayne earned his MBA from the University of North Carolina Business School and served in the U.S. Marine Corps. Hoorah. His background in commercial real estate, passion in leading teams, and desire to increase his investors and teams' wealth pushed him to start CREI Partners. Wayne, my friend, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you. Semper Fi. Appreciate you inviting me. I do appreciate it. This is a special show because I've done 30 plus podcasts as a host, but not on the other side. So look forward to being a guest on your show and appreciate your inviting me.
Yeah, you bet, Wayne. Always great to have a fellow Marine on. We share green blood and have a lot of stories, a lot of things in common. But let's kick this off. I mean, that's pretty awesome that you were in the Marine Corps and your last name is Courreges. So, can you tell us a little bit about the origins of that?
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before the show, but it's a French name, Courreges. So those, if I go to a fancy clothing shop, or they'll pronounce my last name as Courreges because I don't think he's part of our family, but maybe it's not a popular name. But there's a Courreges fashion designer in France and stores and such. So anyway, one of the ancestors wanted to make it more American sounding, and so they took off the accent and Courreges. So I had a lot of fun in Marine Corps boot camp. Like, oh, you want to be courageous? Good. Get on my parade.
I can picture that.
Yeah, it could be fun, right? It doesn't, there was one recruit that I remember had a big old Superman logo on the back of his cap. So imagine like about face, like we're all in our skivvies and everything and, doing inspections. And I just remember that drill instructor going crazy when he saw that Superman thing. So anyway, I was grateful for him because it took off the heat on me having a last name Courreges.
Yeah, very cool. But tell the listeners too, what a really cool story about the background and was it the French American Legion?
Yeah. So, I mean, we were talking a little briefly, just the Courreges being Courreges, but it's unique in our family history that, our family has served in majority of the American wars since the American Revolution. And my dad, he's really, it really started with my grandmother. They were really into genealogy when she was alive. She did a lot of temple work for the Latter-day Saint community. She was really into the Mormon culture and the religion, and part of that is genealogy work. And it's pretty amazing what they do. But through that, it linked us all the way. I mean, just amazing the background would go. So when she passed, my dad and his sister, my Aunt Suzette, took that and continued on. So not part of your show, but it's amazing the genealogy and just knowing your history a little bit and being proud of the roots that you come from.
Yeah, for sure. I think it is very cool. We actually, so our last name Wolcott, which is really Wolcott because it's English, primarily English and Dutch. But we actually go back to the signer of the Declaration of Independence was Oliver Wolcott, one of them. And so we named our son that. One of our sons is named Oliver. So yeah, we track that lineage and family history as well. Awesome. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, good stuff. So tell us, Wayne, a little bit about, your journey into real estate. I mean, how did you leave the Marine Corps and, get into real estate and building wealth that way? Tell us a little more.
Yeah. So my family doesn't have any background in real estate that I'm, if I can think about it, it's, my parents were both hardworking people that went to, they had long careers. They didn't switch jobs. My dad worked for Roadway Express as trucking and sales. My mom worked in uh, for a hardware door lock company, pretty much their whole career. And and we were middle class, and very blessed in that way that I didn't really have a tough upbringing of any sort. But high school, dated somebody whose family was really wealthy in real estate, and that triggered a lot of curiosity of things. And I remember one time we were at the country club, and I asked, how can I be wealthy like you? And I remember her dad saying, to have wealth, to be wealthy, you have to own real estate, right? And so he really set the fire in me, and to do that. So when in the Marine Corps, I bought my first single family rental in 29 Palms. Actually, I was 19 years old, and it was like an $80,000 home, 2-bed, 1-bath, in the desert, right? Wow. But it was the first property, and the lady who I bought it from was a real estate agent, owner, broker in 29 Palms, and we were able to buy the property. I didn't use VA home loan or anything, just a conventional loan, and I rented it to a good buddy of mine and his wife. They lived there for about a year, maybe a little longer. I got stationed in Okinawa, Japan right after that. So they were living there during my time in Okinawa. But long story short, I remember calling them and saying, hey, I'm looking to sell. It's about 2006, 2007. Things were getting a little shaky in the market. So I'm like, I'm ready to sell, about to leave the Marine Corps. And he left. He went to on-base housing. So the house sat for a few months, and the house got destroyed by kids or somebody. But I remember calling USAA. This is a plug for USAA. Just saying, hey, I'm in Okinawa, Japan. Mind you, I'm like 21 years old, not knowing really what I'm doing. And they were like, do you have any personal property? I'm like, no, I don't. I mean, there's nothing. And they coached me, and they said, well, do you have a refrigerator in there? I was like, yes. And they're like, well, you have personal property. And so very grateful. They part of the insurance claim, they took care of everything. But that same lady that sold me that property, who I thought, I trusted, had the hardest time renting it out. And so I called another real estate agent, Dave, and I said, hey, this property just has, it's great shape. Why isn't it being leased? And I found out that that property was not listed in the MLS in 29 Palms. It was listed in the MLS in Palm Springs, which is a pretty big deal. So pretty quick lesson learned on tenants and finding the right property manager, and not assuming, really going in and double checking that things are, especially if you're not getting any hits from people. And it makes it a little easier nowadays, Dave, with Zillow and Realtor.com, all these other websites that weren't there back in there. People depended on the MLS, and if you weren't on the MLS, it was hard to get views. So Anyway, long story short, but that was through high school. Started in residential. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I was fortunate to get on with a company, Fortune 150 commercial real estate firm. And at the time, I was trying to get more on the development side, and they weren't hiring on the development side. So they said, hey, we got an opportunity for you in property management. And they sold me, there was a wheel saying, hey, you start here, but then you can go to brokers, development, project management. I mean, the company, they touch everything in commercial real estate. So I was like, all right, well, let me start with property management and see where it goes. And it's really built a foundation, Dave, of my entire career of working with owners on their strategic operating, repositioning, thinking like an owner, and executing the strategies to grow their investors' wealth and such. So anyway, I'll stop there, but that sort of just led me up to commercial real estate, and I've done it my entire career.
Yeah, that's awesome. It is interesting how these, sometimes these journeys, right, begin with, a seed or just something really small, and then kind of, blossom from there. So yeah, interesting story. And I can picture 29 Palms. I spent many months out there, unfortunately. It was a tough duty station, but no, that's great. And so I think that really leads right into your forte around asset management and such, right? Can you talk to us a little bit more around, what does it take to do asset management effectively? What's, creates you as a superior operator, on the asset management side?
Well, I think everybody has different personalities and strengths and such. And early on, I mentioned I want to be a developer. Developers are very transactional, just like brokers. They've got a task, they're developing a property, or there's a lease to be made, or a sale of a building. It's very transactional. It's on to the next. Where on the asset management side, and I didn't realize this about myself, Dave. Like I joined property management because I needed a job out of the Marine Corps. I wanted to be in commercial real estate, and I'm just going to be part of one of the best commercial real estate companies out there worldwide. So it was like me getting in the door with a great company, learning as much as I can. And it's been 15 years. But what I've learned about myself, and everybody grows and changes and learns through their experiences, is that I'm not a transactional person. I enjoy the day-to-day operations. I enjoy leading teams and getting to know the people, both on the resident tenant side and the property management, engineers, maintenance, et cetera. I enjoy developing strategic operational budgets and capital plans and looking long-term of what this property really needs. And it's not so much of what the property really needs, because it's important for the feasibility of the property to have the mechanical, electrical, plumbing of it, but what makes sense from an investment standpoint, right? Because there's a point where you can spend so much capital that you're similar to your house. You can renovate so much, but at some point you're spending money because you want that thing in your house, not because it's going to sell more than the next door neighbor and such, right? Now, in commercial real estate, it's all about net operating income, cap rate. So it's obviously a lot different. Our revenue or our values is based on the revenues, right? So that mentality from an asset management side is to think from an ownership standpoint is like, how do we either increase revenue, decrease expenses, do a little bit both, and understanding like a competitive stack. So I've enjoyed it. There are many people that you and I know in certain masterminds and such that they're transactional, and that's fantastic. We need transactional people. And I've just found that, there's a lot of money to be made transactionally quickly. I've just enjoyed the asset management piece. And so we're all different. We all make things from a team standpoint. We all need people like me and you and others that are bringing something different to the table. So
yeah, absolutely. It's really a great point. And I think there's really not enough merit to that, but you can see it in commercial real estate, right? Really well, is that completely different skill sets, from everything from the investor relations side, right? And raising capital to the asset management. Property management. All of these things take very unique skill sets. And, it doesn't take long running a business to realize that you have to stay on your lane. You have to double down on your strengths. But it's interesting, right? Because it's kind of counterintuitive, from what we all learned in school and everything, right? It's all like, okay, well, you need to work on those weaknesses. I can still remember even leaving, the Marines when I got into doing job interviews. It's like, okay, they're going to ask you, what are your top 3 weaknesses? And then you're going to say how you're working on them to develop them. But in the real world, it's not about that. You double down on your strengths and you work with partners to, and team members to fill in those. So that's great that, you've been able to identify that.
Yeah, and in the smaller deals, you may be able to go at it solo. That's, depending on your net worth, where you are, type thing. It may make sense, but as you're scaling and doing, large multi-million-dollar deals, from a standpoint of thinking that you can do it yourself, in some cases, some people can, but the majority of people, they need help. They need team members. And if, and that's the only way things will get, really get done. And, from a standpoint of executing on a project, getting the project to the finish line of purchasing it, and then executing the plan. So
yeah, for sure. Tell us about some of the creative things. One of the things I love about, being an entrepreneur and being in real estate is the creative aspect to it. And I'm not into asset management myself, but boy, I love some of the things like, everything I've heard from, implementing like pet parks to new gyms, to putting in electric charging stations to valet trash service. Tell us about some, creative things that, you're doing to, not only increase NOI as you talked about, but also to, increase the value, right? And the attractiveness to the residents.
Yeah. I mean, first thing is with any business plan, you've got to understand, I'm going to say the SWOT analysis. And I know they changed those terms up many times, but strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. So pretty important to treat every property like its own business, right? And understand, what is the competitive set doing, what you're not doing. And I think most importantly, on a multifamily side, and multifamily and office, both I have a lot of experience in, is going to be different. But on the multifamily side is what really matters to the residents. I can put in, incredible technology and do a lot of upgrades and renovations into these units. But if they're that doesn't really drive the needle in income, whether it's in a location that doesn't allow for, these huge bumps, et cetera, you're not going to get the NOI bumps. You've spent money because you haven't really understood what the market is doing. But I would say from a standpoint of, what I'm typically focused on Class B projects, multifamily, is, people want to come home and have a safe, comfortable environment, right? They want to feel like their kids can go out and play. I have 3 kids, and anything that I can do, Dave, to help the apartment community and such have a family environment feel. So I'm really into green space, playgrounds, renovating the pool area, what could be a club room or a clubhouse where you can do birthday parties, pet parks, that if I'm able to fit that in, that definitely can add value. But I feel like the type of people that I'm looking for are family oriented and sharing similar values and such. And I think if we're taking care of the families, they're more likely to pay a little bit more, right? Because they have that safety, security, comfort that their kids are able to go out, but then you're more likely to have renewals. So I take a little different and focus really a lot on the family, especially if I have a lot of like a 2-bed, 3-bath, or excuse me, 2-bath or 3-bedroom apartments. Technology is huge too. I mean, it's something that not only are we seeing in the workplace, but it's all around us. So what can we do to increase technology and have Bluetooth, capabilities? But ultimately, I'm not really focusing right now, Dave, on a lot of the Class A fancy bells and whistles. Like the demographic that I really work with a lot they care if it's safe, if it's functional, and I would say comfortable. So when I go in and I see units, I remember the first unit or first property I did due diligence on, my mentor, James Kanasami, was like, don't look at it like you're living here. You're not living here. This is not your home, right? Look at it like the demographic that's here, they need a place to, have a community and such, but they're going to be wanting and needing different things than you normally would. So I think that's huge from a revenue standpoint. It's really, again, going back to the SWOT analysis, understanding your demographics, seeing what the neighboring people are doing. And then from the expense side, be creative. You talked about creativity, as we buy more properties in a general area, it's like, how can we share on labor? Like, do we need, like, we'll have an office person, but can we share from a maintenance side? If we're doing a big capital projects, like replacing all the HVAC units or a majority of them, like, how can we buy in bulk? What's the purchasing power of our management companies? A lot of times, some communities, it's only, a couple of property management companies are small, but if you can get with a large one that has purchasing power, a lot of the ability to have leverage their relationships, you can reduce a lot of your expenses on the capital side. So I think going back to basics, Dave, and when I say basics, for me, it's basic from being in the asset management, property management for 15 years, but just doing annual bids, going out and ensuring that you've got the right scope, that you have the, competitive pricing. And then the last thing I'll say is on the insurance side, it's not sexy, it's not creative as much, but so many people are not looking at creative side. How many times have we go to a property and you see this ladder on the side of the roof that, someone's up there with nobody at the bottom of the, the ladder and such, and a lot, I mean, you think about just the risk, the exposure, which also can definitely impact value and such if you're in a lawsuit or something catastrophic happens. So hopefully that answered your question.
No, those were really some great points. And I really love that, trying to connect, with your tenants really and understand, what they need there. In this market, are you seeing huge surge in expense costs right now?
Well, in every market's a little different. I focus typically Austin, San Antonio, and Houston, unless I have strong partners that are doing really well in other markets. But in Texas in particular, taxes and insurance, right? And those are two things that we really keep an eye on. Insurance, it's important. We have strong strategic partnerships with tax consultants. One in particular that we've used a lot, and they know the markets and they know the players in certain cities. It's relationship based, and it's you think you can fight your taxes and all, but at the end of the day, it's relationships, and these people have those relationships. So insurance is key. Whenever you go in and try to find a deal and underwrite a deal, get an insurance quote too. And it hurts, especially in Texas, because sometimes you think you've got a great deal, everything works, and then you ask your insurance broker, and you're like, dang, like how is it that much? But it's important to do all that due diligence and not get surprised or be like, oh, I can find it less, when at the end of the day, these insurance brokers they're really just going to like maybe 2 or 3 major carriers. They're going to the same people. So it's not like one group is going to get a better deal just because you think that, they can. So I would say tax and insurance, those are two that you don't really have control over, right? If there's a major storm, and what they're doing is that even though, like, say, I'm going to say Houston, if Houston hadn't had a storm in a couple of years, but say New Orleans or these other coastal cities, coastal areas they're all impacted, right? And then everyone's seeing it. So that's huge. Payroll is tough too. I mean, everybody in every business, and I mean, it's tough to find good people, and it's competitive. And so you've got to pay right and pay well and take care of them. And also, make them feel part of the team, make them feel like they're part of the bigger picture, and they are going to be rewarded by implementing this plan, right? What's in it for them. And so it's not, I don't know, I'm really passionate about just taking care of your people. So expenses, I mean, it's all pretty, I mean, when you underwrite and such, it's pretty, standard, 400 a door on R&M, say 200 and administrative type expenses. So you have those baselines that the lenders are going to do anyway. So, but once you get the property, you find ways to cut and be mindful, be strategic, but also at the end of the day, you can cut a bunch of expenses. And if it makes the property look bad or the service level is declining, it's maybe not the best. So you just got to be mindful and sort of see what works for that particular property.
Right. What if everything you thought you knew about investing was wrong? Would you like to create a wealth strategy like the top 1% have and get exclusive access to top private equity deals that provide downside protection, tax efficiency, predictable cash flow, and have a lucrative upside? Discover how with the Pantheon Advantage and join our investor club today at pantheoninvest.com. Can you tell us a little bit about the Houston MSA? I know you're based in Houston, Wayne. A lot of our community is on the East Coast or, across the country may not be as familiar with the Houston MSA, and it conjures up, I mean, I know there's some flooding issues, right? There's also been some, domination by certain industries particularly, but tell us what's going on in Houston right now. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, so from a Houston standpoint, it is it's a massive MSA. It's one of those cities when you drive through, it's like, does it end? There's massive, 4 or 5 lane highways and such. So a lot of people won't even touch Houston, thinking it's just very oil. And yeah, there's definitely the oil element to it, but people don't realize that it's also, the world's largest medical center there. There's a large port that I always joke, when those ships are on the side of California, like, hey, Texas is open, just loop around, and our ports are open and ready for business. You've got, if I recall, last 27 of the 52, those numbers may have altered a little bit, of the Fortune 500 companies of Texas Fortune 500 companies are based in Houston. So you've got a lot of diversity there. You think about we talked about medical, Port of Houston, the oil, the major league with the Rockets and the Astros and the Texans. You've got a lot of entertainment that comes that way as well. A large element of like conferencing, the number of hotels and such. So there's a lot of growth. The airports, there's two major airports in Houston as well. All this to say that the city is one of the most, I live in Bryan College Station. We've got a property here, but it's pretty close to Houston. But when I lived in Houston and go to work and such, when I'm checking on properties, it's so diverse. I don't know if you've been to Houston, but you've got, amazing food, amazing people respecting each other. There's every city is going to have its ups and downs with crime and such. But I think for the most part, when things are tough, when there's a major flood or something's happened, Texans come together, Houston comes together. And I think it bodes well for investments. You mentioned flooding, and that's, from an investment commercial real estate side, that's got to be, if you're investing in Houston, something that you're looking at. I won't touch a property that's in a flood zone if it's and it's a simple search on the flood zone or FEMA map, right? And so that's step one. Before broker sends me info, grateful, thank you so much for this opportunity, but I go to the FEMA website. If it's in a flood zone, I'll email back saying thank you. I don't look at properties in flood zone. So that's step one, investing in Houston. Step two is when you start doing your due diligence, has there been any floods at the property in the last 5 to 7 years? If not, it's done pretty well. And I probably should extend those years longer, because when I was in there 2012 to 2017 living in Houston, there was the Memorial Day flood, the tax day flood, you had Harvey, and different parts of Houston would be flooded. So, if it's been through all these storms and has done well, that's why this property, the Gallery Apartments in Houston, I've targeted that property for about 19 months through an off-market search, and really learned that area, went door to door to nearby properties, understanding what has happened with flooding and such. So it's definitely an important subject. And even the other thing I'll say, Dave, is whenever people are going into these other markets, find somebody local, find somebody who has been there a while. And I say that because people didn't realize a lot of the Memorial area in Houston was flooded. So Memorial is West Houston. A lot of people love that area. In some cases, not a flood zone, but tremendous amount of flooding happened during Harvey in that area, and you wouldn't know it if you go over there today. So at the end of the day, sometimes just having local knowledge and having people that have experience in that market is huge.
Yeah. No, those are really good points. So thanks for sharing that. From a wealth strategy perspective, Wayne, if you could give just one piece of advice to our listeners about how they could accelerate their wealth trajectory, what would it be?
One piece of advice. One thing I would say is don't get in real estate unless you truly have a lot of passion and grit to get through the ups and downs of this business. From an active investing side, I see too many people going to these conferences and having no money, or the money that they do have, they put it into these conferences, getting excited. You get rich tomorrow. You can do this plan. These are the steps. Anybody can do it, because it's going to chew you up and burn you out. Real estate is ruthless. It's everyday trench warfare, going out there, finding properties, get the properties. You mentioned it, raising capital, working with lenders, it's just an ongoing thing. Now, with that said, if you don't have passion in real estate, that's okay. You can still invest in real estate passively, right? And highly recommend passively investing in real estate. But I always tell my investors and people, like, you don't have to invest everything in real estate. invest in what you know about, what you're knowledgeable in. And so that could be taxes. It could be, I'd say cryptocurrency, whatever gets you excited and makes you an matter expert at that investment vehicle. I will say diversify though. So if you're focused heavily and you're great at evaluating companies and stocks, and et cetera, then maybe put majority of your funds in at this time in stocks, but then invest passively in real estate. See how that does for you. See how the tax advantages of the cost seg, et cetera. Because people who are not knowing real estate, going into real estate, your money is tied up, potentially 3 to 5, 7 years in some cases, maybe longer. So you got to have a lot of knowledge with that. So what I'd say for anybody that's looking to grow their wealth is find something that really excites them. I mean, an investment, Dave, could be do your own business. Not everybody has to be in the stock market, real estate. We don't have to make this complicated, right? At the end of the day, your life, your personal business is like, it's revenue minus expenses and what's your cash flow, right? And your cash flow could be $500 a month. It could be 50, it could be negative 100. Whatever that is, try to find a way to get to a point where you are investing $25 or 50,000 or 100, wherever you are in life, where you are investing and you're being consistent, because over time it grows and that compound interest grows. And that's where true wealth is. Or bet on yourself, invest on yourself, whether that's through school, whether that's through business, starting your own business and such. So I don't think it's a hard answer because it's not a one size fits all. For me, real estate is my passion. It's like, every time I go out, I'm looking at real estate. My mind is always churning. I'm always trying to find opportunities. It excites me. My wife just gets it. Like my mind does not turn off real estate. So if someone out there is their mind's on a massage therapy business, then invest yourself, go after that. Go after whatever your passion is, because when times get tough, and you and I, we experience it every day in real estate, when times get tough, you've got to have passion and enjoy what you're doing. That's what's going to get you through, because you're going to be kicked in the gut, whether it's real estate or stocks, whatever. The other thing too, Dave, is I learned in 2007 when I got out of the Marine Corps and things started crashing, right? I didn't have money. And, looking back, I wish I had money, because if I had some money, and I'm not even saying a lot of money, but some money, I would have put money into the stock market. Put money, everything's at a discount. Everybody right now is really concerned about inflation and such. One, multifamily and real estate in general hedges huge of that inflation. But think of everything right now on sale. Like if you're not needing that cash tomorrow or next year, make sure you got your savings and such. Don't get me wrong, but get some discounted stocks. Look at in real estate, there's going to be opportunities all around. So when people are running, it might be a good time to, charge in and see what you can do to get some opportunities.
Yeah, really great points, Wayne. I think you're right. There's so much frenzy, right, in the media, and it's all so sensationalized, right? And they make you want to live in a bubble and not leave the bubble, right? But you're right. Savvy investors, what they're doing is they're just they're licking their chops right now. They have dry powder, and they're saying, hey, there's going to be some opportunities here. And you name it, pick the asset class, but there's definitely going to be some opportunities. And, one of the traps, and unfortunately, I think we all have fallen prey to this, is where, Wall Street and corporate America, I mean, they think that's the only answer, right? Is to put your money in 401ks and, pay down your mortgage. That's the right answer. But they're making so many false assumptions, right? They're making this assumption that, hey, the market can only go up, right? But in reality, it can go sideways and down. And the only people who are making money are those brokers, because they're making money under assets under management. Whereas, in real estate, all of this is performance driven. So as you said, I mean, you've got your capital tied up in a project for 5 years or so, and, you're only going to get compensated if you meet the business plan. I mean, I love that model, right?
Yeah. Well, too, dude, I don't think people shouldn't go into real estate investing passively into one of our deals if this is their last 50,000, right? This is one of those things where you look at your hierarchy of needs, and you're you got your foundational type items, but for those, like on my podcast, most of my listeners are W-2, and they have access to a 401k. I mean, if anything, max out your 401k so you're getting that maximum match. Not to say do the full, 19, 20,000 that it is this year, but at least get that match. It's free money. So it's consistency, it's long-term strategy, and it's understanding like where you are in your, like if you're a cash flow person because you want to start leaving your job and having that passive income, then look for passive cash flowing deals. Where I'm at in my life and career is I'm not needing the cash flow today. So what I'm wanting is 3-year, 5-year type investments that double my money. 3 to 5 years, double my money, go in another type deal. So I'm in that mindset, but at some point I'm going to shift and be like, hey, I'm going to reduce the risk and look at, different real estate investments that are more maybe pref equity, that I'm just worried about that cash flow. Right. And so it's going to change through life. And that's okay. That's good. Just stay diversified and enjoy the ride, whatever you're deciding to do. There's not a right or wrong answer. Real estate is not the only thing that can grow your wealth. It's what I have found to have worked for us and my family. And I've got a lot of passion in it. And our investors along the way who've invested with us are growing their wealth. But if real estate isn't something that you want to do, then there's definitely other options.
Awesome, Wayne. Really appreciate you coming on the show today. Thanks for your time. I know you've got a ton of things on your plate, but great to connect. And if folks want to reach out to you and connect or follow you, where's the best place?
Yeah, Dave, thanks again for having me on your show. Really appreciate it. For those listeners, please go to CREIPartners.com /ebook. I've got a ebook out there that really goes into passively investing in real estate. But I also have a lot of info on the website with blogs and podcasts, other terms, and then we can reach out for a call and such, just to build a relationship. So this is a relationship business, and happy to be a resource in anything I can do for you, Dave, or anyone out there listening. I appreciate the time.
Excellent. Thanks again, Wayne.